Hey guys, welcome to Pipes and Clicks. Today I am going to do. I had an idea that I wanted to do a team building. I'm going to call it fun with team building. Team building for both beginners and intermediate players. I wouldn't say for expert players, because I myself am not by any means an expert player. I'm smoking this fantasy freehand. As far as I can tell, the brand of this is Hanseatic. You get these off of pipesandcigars.com. It's a pretty good smoking pipe. 9mm filter. And I've got some Cornell and Deal Constellation in here. It's in a pretty full flavored English, American English, I would say. It's got burleys in it. Really tasty. Really, really, really good. Got a good 2 inches of snow here last night in southern New Jersey. Pretty cold out today. I think the low today was like 28, something like that. But anyway, so yeah, this is going to be a beginner to intermediate team building explanation. Basically, how I go about building a heroclix team when I want to have a fun game with some friends or up at the shop. So, like I said, I am in no way a expert level player. I'm pretty decent. I don't go to any major events. I just kind of play with friends or at my local venue, which is Adventureland in Voorhees, New Jersey. And so basically, I am the store's lead judge, and I organize the games there. And once a week we have free play for new people playing the game, and a lot of new guys come in on that day to learn to play new strategies, new figures, just kind of get more of a feel for the game before they start coming into the more major tournaments that we hold. Because it's intimidating for a new player to play competitive at any level. It's intimidating, you know. So I just thought that I would come on and explain to you a good way to build teams, or at least how I go about building teams. So the first thing that I like to try to tell new players is to not just throw out the most powerful figure you can find. Yeah, everybody wants to play that Superman or that Incredible Hulk or those, 3, 4, 500 point characters, but that's not. I can tell you right now, 9 times out of 10, it's not a good idea in this game. I mean, yeah, those figures are awesome, and a lot of times you can get away with it. But what ends up happening is, like, let's say you're playing a 400 point game, and you play a 300 point Incredible Hulk, and then some other smaller point figures. what ends up happening 9 times out of 10 is you get out-actioned, meaning in a like say you're playing 400 points, you would have 4 actions because you get 1 action for every 100 points of the game's build total, right? Now, if you're only playing, say, 2 figures because you're playing that big 300-point Hulk and then, say, another 100-point figure, whatever, you're only going to be able to use your 2 out of your available 4 actions for the game. Whereas your opponent might play a bunch of smaller characters while, you would think that those smaller point characters may not be as strong as your big 300-point Hulk. The problem with that is every turn they're doing 4 things because they have 4 actions to use when you're only doing 2 or maybe even 1 thing because you're using that 400-point figure, you know what I mean? And you get out-actioned. So your opponent gets to do a bunch of things on their turn when you only get to do 1 or 2 things. Never works out really well. So what I like to tell new players to do is to, when you're playing a high point game, go ahead and go for those big characters. But if you're only playing 300-400 points, a good rule of thumb is to never make your major attacker be more than half of your game's build total. Meaning, like say if you're doing a 400-point game, don't ever have your main guy, your main attacker, be over 200 points. And even then, that's still kind of not always a good idea. You can definitely get away with that. It's always a sound strategy, but it's not always the best strategy. What I've found is playing with a bunch of smaller figures in a low point game is almost always a better strategy. And only when you get into those bigger, higher point, 5, 6, 7, 8, even up 100 points, is when the bigger figures come into play and become more usable. So I built a quick team just to show you what I would do. Now, this is in no way a hyper-competitive team, so you veteran players, if you're watching this video, I know you don't have to judge this team. It's a fun team. It's something that any of you new players or intermediate players that may have these particular figures can go ahead and use this team and have a lot of fun using it. It's really cool. Well, I think it's really cool. So, let's get into it. Well, let me relight this first. Okay. Whenever you're building a team, you want to have a goal. When I say goal, I mean something that you want your team to be able to do. Like, I like to pick a figure that I want to be the center of my team, and then make my team work around that figure and help that figure. Now, that's not to say all the other figures in your team should be bad, because the more good figures you have in your team, obviously, is a better team. But I like to say, make your maiden figure the hardest for your opponent to deal with. Okay? So, I started off with one of my favorite keywords, and it's Thunderbolts. So you Marvel Comics fans may know Thunderbolts. Basically, bad guys that are pretending to be good guys, right? So, first figure, now this is going to be the backbone of my team, is Taskmaster. Now this Taskmaster is the rare from the Civil War OP event, organized play event, that happened over the past summer. Now this particular Taskmaster, the reason why I go with this guy is he's got an answer for everything. So in any one of his clicks, he's got something that can deal with another type of character, whether it be somebody with a damage reducer or somebody with super senses or what have you. Now, what I wanted to do is to make this guy as hard for my opponent to deal with as I possibly can. Now, what this guy does really cool is that every turn he can pick a click, any click on his dial, okay, and turn his dial to that click. And when his turn is over, when your turn is over, he goes back to the click that he began his turn on. So that's a free action to activate that power. So you can do it at the beginning of your turn. You say, okay, I want to use him on his close combat dial where he has charge and exploit weakness and combat reflexes. Anybody is new and is following around with this video, if you don't know what the powers are, you can go ahead and look at a powers and abilities card. I'm not going to go into explaining what every single power does because it's going to take way too long, but try to follow along if you're new. So let's say I want to turn him to this click where he's really good at close combat, where he's got exploit weakness and charge and combat reflexes, and he hits a character with the Mystic's ability and takes a click of damage for hitting them. What's cool about him is that at the end of the turn, it doesn't matter because he's going to go right back to where he started. So if he's on his top click, his starting click, he's going to go right back to his starting click, no matter how much damage he takes on his turn. Now on the opponent's turn, if the opponent damages him, that's a different story. But try to get him as hard to deal with as I can by putting him on the clicks that I think he'll be most effective in dealing with the opponent. So now, another cool thing about him is that he has the Minions of Doom team ability. And that's the Doom face there, Dr. Doom's face. Now, what that means is that he's a wild card for team abilities, meaning he can copy other characters' team abilities. Now, that's going to come into play as I explain my strategy here with Taskmaster. So, the next thing I threw on this team was the super rare Proteus from the Uncanny X-Men set. Now, Proteus can be played regularly for 200 points, or he can be used in a newer game mechanic that came out for the War of Light set last year, where a character can possess another character. And when a character possesses another character, only certain characters have the possession ability, but this particular character does have that ability. So instead of playing him at 200 points, you play him for 35 points, and he gets attached to another character for the entire game. And certain characters, when they're possessing other characters, they either give that character abilities or increase their stats or what have you. This particular character, when he possesses another character, increases all of their combat values by +1. So that includes movement, attack, defense, damage, and range. All by +1. So that would make Taskmaster go from, instead of an 8, 10, 17, 2 with a 5 range, he would now have a 9, 11, 18, 3 with a 6 range. And that's for the entirety of the game. Now, usually with possessing characters, there's a drawback. The drawback for this character is that once per turn, the character who is being possessed by him rolls. It's at the end of your turn, actually, not once per turn. But at the end of every turn, you roll a d6, and on the result of a 1 or 2 on that d6, the character that's being possessed takes 1 unavoidable click of damage. And it's symbolizing him burning out the host body. And that's, matter of fact, that's what the power is called, burning out bodies. Now, cool thing about Taskmaster is that at the end of his turn, whatever damage he took doesn't matter, because he returns to the click he began his turn at the end of his turn. So that damage that's being given to him, possibly by Proteus, is going to go right back, and it doesn't affect him at all. So it takes that bad part away from Proteus possessing Taskmaster, which is really good because he just gets that all those +1s on every one of his clicks, and he doesn't have to worry about it. So the next figure in my team is going to be another super rare, and this is Baron Zemo from the Superior Foes of Spider-Man set, recently released this year. Well, I should say last year, because now it's 2017. I don't know, I always do that. It'll take me a week or so before I start actually calling it this year. Anyway, cool part about Baron Zemo is that he gives all friendly characters, I'll read off his card, other friendly characters with the Masters of Evil or Thunderbolts keywords can use sidestep and modify their attack values by +1. Now, since my entire team is Thunderbolts keyword, it's a themed team of Thunderbolts, every single one of my figures, other than Baron Zemo, is going to have sidestep and +1 to their attack. So now, Taskmaster went from having an 11 from Proteus to now he's got a 12 attack because of Baron Zemo. So now, at all times, he's going to have a 12 attack. It's pretty awesome. On top of that, Baron Zemo has the Masters of Evil team ability. Masters of Evil team ability says that characters with the Masters of Evil team ability can be given actions even if they have 2 action tokens. And then after actions resolve, they take 1 unavoidable damage. Now, can you guess what I'm going for here? You got it. Taskmaster doesn't have to worry about that 1 unavoidable damage because at the end of his turn, he goes right back to the beginning again. Well, right back to where he started, not the beginning. But if you're on your beginning click, that's where he's going to go, which is pretty awesome. So now, he goes from being pretty decent to being amazing because he never has to stop. Every single turn, he can make an attack or move or do something, which really makes him hard to deal with because when your opponent has to clear, he doesn't. Really good strategy there. All right, so next up, you know what? Let me relight my pipe because this is Pipes&Clix after all, right? Got a Zippo. Alright. Next up is yet another super rare. This is super rare Nighthawk from the Nick Fury and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. set. Now, cool thing about him is he's again a Thunderbolts character. He sees through hindering terrain, meaning that if someone is sitting in or behind hindering terrain, he would not. His line of fire would not be modified by the hindering terrain, so he wouldn't lose his accuracy. And on top of that, if a character is using the stealth ability to hide in said hindering terrain, it doesn't work anymore because he ignores the hindering terrain, which is really cool. And at the beginning of the game, an opponent chooses night or day. If they choose night, you modify Nighthawk's combat values by +1. All of his combat values by +1. If they choose day, you modify all defense characters of all characters by -1, unless they occupy hindering terrain or are friendly to Nighthawk. So that's going to say that either you're going to give +1s to my Nighthawk, or all of your characters have -1 to their defense. It's pretty evil. He's a really fun character to use. Now, he is a mostly range character, and he does have Perplex on his starting click, so he can help out and use his Perplex to, say, make Taskmaster even more dangerous, which is pretty cool. And he has the Defender's team ability, which says that characters using the Defender's team ability can share their unmodified defense, replace the unmodified defense of an adjacent friendly character with their defense, right? As long as they're using the Defender's team ability as well, which Taskmaster has the wildcard ability, so he can use that team ability along with the Masters of Evil team ability. The way wildcards work is that you can use a team ability from anybody on your team at any point during your turn and at any point during your opponent's turn, which is really cool. Now, what's also cool is that Nighthawk and friendly characters that share a keyword with him may replace their attack value with the unmodified attack value of an adjacent friendly character that shares a keyword. So now, that's going to come into play when, say, Taskmaster is adjacent to Baron Zemo, who has a 12 attack. So now in heroclix, there's always what's called the rule of 3, meaning that no stat can be increased or decreased more than 3. But you always replace a value before you increase it. So if this power says that his attack value can be replaced with a friendly character with a shared keyword, that means that I can replace Taskmaster's stock 10 attack with Baron Zemo's stock 12 attack, and then he's going to get those pluses from Proteus and Baron Zemo. So that means that at any time, if he's adjacent to Baron Zemo, or my next character that I'm going to show you, he's going to have a 14 attack, right? So then I can also use any of my other characters' perplexes. I'm talking too much and my pipe keeps going out. to raise his attack an additional +1, because that'd be the rule of 3 for the +3, to a 15 attack. Now, there's very, very few figures in this game that has any higher than a 15 attack. Most of them are over 1,000 points. So, for a character who's 80 points to have a 14 or 15 attack, like 80% of the time, it's going to be pretty hard for you to get away from his attacks. He's generally not going to miss you when he tries to hit. So, my next figure that I want to show you is Trickshot. Now, Trickshot is a rare from the Avengers Assemble set. Trickshot also has the Masters of Evil team ability. And Trickshot is, as you can see, a ranged character with his bow and arrow there. It's a lot like Hawkeye. As a matter of fact, he's Hawkeye's brother. Now, he can also see through hindering terrain. So now my ranged characters are pretty much they're going to cover my opponent if my opponent is trying to use hindering to their advantage. And when he's making a ranged combat attack, if all of his targets have either the sharpshooter ability or a range of 7 or higher, you modify his attack and damage values by +1. Now, his attack and damage values are already a respectable 12 and 3, so he's dangerous as it is. But you now increase his attack value because of Baron Zemo to a 13, and then he's going to get a possible 14 if he's hitting another ranged character. You're not really going to get away from him either. So that's pretty good. And he can also share his attack value through Nighthawk with Taskmaster. So now whether Taskmaster wants to try to be a ranged guy for that turn, or he wants to try to be a close guy for that turn, he can do both and have a possible 15 attack. So that's always really, really, really good. So a lot of you guys are sitting there going, how could anybody deal with that? Believe me, lots of people can deal with that. It seems like a lot to deal with, but it's actually once you manage to take out Taskmaster, it's pretty much done. I forgot to mention that this is a 600 point team, and so far we still have 2 characters left. So next up, we've got Speed Demon. Speed Demon is a super rare from the Deadpool set. What's cool about him is that when he moves, after actions resolve, so meaning after he moves, okay, you choose an opposing character and roll a d6. If the result is less than the number of distinct squares that Speed Demon moved into or through that are adjacent to that character during that move, you may place that character within line of fire of its square and move it up to the result away in squares and deal that character half of the result in damage. So the way that works is that Speed Demon, when he moves, he ignores characters and hindering terrain. So when he's moving, he's going to go right through your character's square. So you could move him through your opponent's character, right back through your opponent's character, and if you had enough movement, you can go right back through him again. So you want to try to move him through your opponent's character square as many times as you can, or around your opponent's character as many times as you can, so that when he gets back to where he wants to be, it's really gonna be tough for your opponent's figure to deal with. On top of that, he gets a really cool ability where he can use hypersonic speed, and when he does, during his move, he can be given a free action to make a second close combat attack. So that means that when you make hypersonic speed, you can make an attack during your movement. This is saying that he can make an additional attack during his movement as a free action. It is really, really good. And he has the Sinister Syndicate team ability, which can also be shared by Taskmaster. So Taskmaster is really going to be doing a lot of work on this team, and your opponent's going to have a pretty tough time dealing with him. And then lastly, the last figure on the team, I should say last playable figure on the team, you'll understand that in a second, is Mercy. Now Mercy comes to us, she's a common from the Deadpool set's Fast Forces. She comes to us from the Deadpool set. She's a unique figure. You can tell by the silver ring around her base. So you can only play one of her at a time. Now I'm playing this Mercy at her lower point dial. She can be played at 75 points or 50 points. I'm playing her at the 50 point dial. Now, this is basically just going to make her a support character because she can fly, carry other characters. She has probability control, so she can affect whether I hit or miss, which generally with Taskmaster's big 15 attack, he's not really going to miss. But it can also affect whether my opponent hits or misses me, which is good. Sorry, there's a delivery truck across the street here. And also she's got the telekinesis ability, which allows her to move my figs or my opponent's figs, which really comes in handy. It's a really good support piece at 50 points. So that rounds out my playable figures. And then to finish off my points to make it closest to 600 as I can, I played the Hawkeye ID card and the Venom ID card. Now, what I did was I played the Hawkeye from Avengers Assemble, the common Hawkeye from Avengers Assemble, who also has the Thunderbolts keyword, and the rare Venom from the Deadpool set, who has the Thunderbolts keyword. Now, ID cards are sort of a new mechanic where they you can use them to call in figures from outside the game for one turn, and then they disappear the next turn. But the character calling in has to be equal or higher points. So I can only call these characters in with a few characters on my team, which is not always the best strategy. You should always be able to call in your ID characters with every figure on your team. But in this case, they're really just there for points filler. But they can definitely dish out the hurt when I call them in. They can definitely help me when I call them in. The Venom can use telekinesis. He can also be a decent attacker. And so can the Hawkeye, who also ignores hindering terrain for line of fire. So if my opponent is using stealth, they're not really going to get away with it. But yeah, so you get the kind of the idea of what I was going with here. When I say my goal was to try and make Taskmaster hard to deal with, I think I did what I was going for. It's, you know, he's a really decent figure. If you guys are new and you haven't gotten your collection up and you're looking for some good figures to pick up, Taskmaster is definitely a figure that you should try to look out for and try to get your hands on. He's really fun to play, and he's really effective in any team. He doesn't have a lot of keywords, but if you don't care about playing theme teams, then it doesn't really matter. You can just play him. But yeah, so that's my team building for this first try. I'm going to try to make one of these team building videos once a month. So I'll try to help out new players and new intermediate players when you're trying to figure out how to build your own teams. Hopefully I can help you out with some ideas, and you can feel free to use my ideas in any way. I mean, you don't necessarily have to use this team in a 600-point game. You can mix and match this team any way you want. You can bring it all the way down to 300 points if you want. It's just a matter of how you want to play the team. So yeah, go ahead and try it out. Mix and match it any way you like, and let me know how it works for you. You know, give me some comments and let me know how this works for you if you want to try it out. Also, if you have any ideas on how I might make this team any better, go ahead and send them my way. Like I said, I'm not an expert, so I'm always welcoming advice from you veteran players. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this pipe off and enjoy this nice brisk weather. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.